Ghost of Yotei is of course launching on October 2nd, and the developers are doing interviews also with the game file. So in this video I want to go over some very interesting details regarding the development of the game, like the budget. I want to compare it to other Sony first party games because it's kind of crazy. They're doing something really great over there at Sucker Punch. And we also got some other information about Sucker Punch as a studio. So let's go over it. It's from Steven Totillo. I will leave a link to it in the video description. So we're going to scroll all the way down. And basically, what we have, of course, seen this year in general, games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Small team, only needs to sell 1-2 million, and then it's good. While a game like Dragon Age The Veilguard, they projected 3 million players, or 3 million sold half of it, BioWare layoffs, etc. So sometimes there are not the right expectations for what the game can be, and we are seeing now a lot of other studios with smaller teams, like Expedition 33 is another great example. Of course, they had like 33 developers in-house, of course some other people helping as well, but small team, $50 game, huge profit. And it's interesting that seems to be the case for Sucker Punch as well. So what they're basically saying is that we actually asked Sony if it was okay to do a smaller team. 3 years plus thing, rather than let's try and cram it into 2 years and get big. So basically, we can hire more people, get it done faster, or we can stay the same size, take longer, but it might improve the quality. The in-house team for Ghost of Tsushima was around 150 people. Brian Fleming is, by the way, co-founder from Sucker Punch and also a director on the game. He said during GDC, again, a smaller team comparable to other first-party studios. For example, Guerrilla Games is almost twice the size. So that's pretty crazy. For Yotei, Fleming told, the development team was pretty similar to Tsushima. It peaked higher, but the game was made in a little less time. When we look at the financials and the cost, the man years, the amount of months that the team times the size of the team worked on it, very similar actually. So we learned that Ghost of Tsushima cost around the 60 million. I made this tweet, maybe you saw it, but yeah, reported at $60 million. That is huge if you compare it to Spider-Man 1 to Spider-Man 2. That game went from 90 million to $300 million in budget. While basically the co-founder from Sucker Punch is now saying we spend more time on Ghost of Tsushima. So basically the development cost, yeah, it has increased. But since we are the same team spending less time on Yotei versus Tsushima, it cost around the same amount. So from Tsushima to Yotei it's 60 million. Spider-Man it's 90 to 300. Well, we also learned with Spider-Man, this from Kotaku, that the final cost was roughly 30 million over the 270 million budget, according to the presentation. This was from the Insomniac League. It had requiring the game to sell 7.2 million copies at full price to break even. The game sold 6.1 million copies as of November 12th, so that was really quickly after launch. So even with the game selling 6.1 million units, Spider-Man 2, it was still not enough to break even, because Spider-Man is an interesting case because they also have to basically give Marvel like 25% of all their revenue. So for Sony games that they fully own, the profit is of course better. But that shows you that AAA development is kind of crazy. Spider-Man 2 costing 300 million. So it needs to sell 7.2 million at full price to break even. That's without making a profit. So even though you got Spider-Man way bigger than Ghost of Tsushima, Sony is making way more money on Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima sold 13 million copies at a 60 million budget. Obviously, this is with price decreases. On the other hand, on PC, they launched it too at $60. And they sold like 1 million, I think, on PC, maybe even more. They, of course, had the director's cut. They had the Iggy Island DLC as well. So, Sucker Punch is making Sony a ton of profit, which is kind of wild. I wanted to look quickly at the other things here as well. Horizon 1, around the $60 million. Horizon 2, $212 million. We know that Forbidden West sold 8.4 million units in 1 year. That was actually pretty good. But, so, if Spider-Man 2 needs 7.2 to break even, Forbidden West at 8.4 million, yeah, they made a big profit on it. That's great. And of course, we have to also keep in mind, like, having Spider-Man on your console for Sony, having it in a bundle with the PS5, etc. That's so much value that maybe they don't make a lot of profit on the game, but they will have... It's a system seller. People will buy the console for that game. So that still makes it very, very nice to have, even though the profit on the software is less. But yeah, Forbidden West, 8.4 million units. We have not heard an update since, and that is likely because of this. So what they did, they used Forbidden West as to try something out. So basically, at one point they were like, okay, we have Game Pass, of course, doing the first party releases day one on their service. We are not going to do day one, but let's do a year after launch and see what happens. Well, they saw what happens, and that kind of shows you that the Game Pass model for AAA, especially single-player games, the games you can finish, is not that great. The below graph shows the daily game activations for Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. Basically, people buying it, activating the game. They ping the Sony servers. Yo, someone has installed Forbidden West. A new person. In year one, Zero Dawn and Forbidden West were very comparable. So that is interesting, right? A new IP, Horizon Zero Dawn, versus the sequel selling at the same pace. Usually the sequel sells more, which is interesting. We also get to this, like, Shuhei Yoshida, he was surprised that Forbidden West sales weren't better. Like, usually, again, I think Ragnarok sold way more than God of War 2018. Like, instantly. But for Forbidden West, it was similar. 8.4 million, still very good for a franchise that did not exist 10 years ago. But, yeah, it's interesting. And then they put Forbidden West on PlayStation Plus, as you see right here. So they had way more game activations, like people downloading the game through PS Plus extra. But the sales, flat. While Zero Dawn kept selling, nobody bought Forbidden West anymore. So it stayed at that 8 million mark. See? So while Zero Dawn kept selling, they basically killed the sales for Forbidden West by putting it on PlayStation Plus. It's kind of a side note, but it is interesting, I think, nonetheless. But also here, God of War Ragnarok selling over 15 million units. That's something Sony owns. I do think Ragnarok cost them more to make than Ghost of Tsushima. Basically, my point in all this is Ghost of Yotei being $60 million. I do think they're gonna spend more on marketing this time. It's like a proven franchise. So maybe the whole thing, when all is said and done, will be $120 million. Or maybe $100 million. They're gonna make a profit on Ghost of Yotei day one. They're gonna make so much money on this game. It will come to PC later. They might do a new version on the PlayStation 6, etc., etc. That's crazy. That's crazy. So good on them for Sucker Punch. Like, we saw quite some layoffs in PlayStation Studios for Guerrilla Games even, but also a lot of other studios. So, Sucker Punch and Santa Monica were not touched. Like, even Insomniac had to let some people go. Sucker Punch, Santa Monica not touched because they make so much profit on their games. In order to do something great, you need a really incredible idea and not quite enough time. So basically, you can it's better for them to work in a smaller team with less resources than get as big as they want and figure it out that way. I thought that was very, very interesting. So another interesting thing, of course, moving on more to the game. I remember, and maybe you forgot about it, when Yotei was revealed. We were all like, okay, is this a Miles Morales type situation? Because it's not Jin. We all thought we're gonna play Jin in mainland Japan. No, we're playing this new character. Why? And then we figured out, no, this is the true sequel to Tsushima. This is the big thing. And they basically explain now why they did that. And I think it's very interesting. Sequel strategies and making Yotei's heroes someone new. Fleming recalls some tough lessons from the second Infamous, which he believed was a hard landing for people who had not played the first game. It included many of the powers and moves that players learned in the first game, and therefore asked a lot of new players early on. So basically, people heard, okay, Infamous is awesome. They bought Infamous 2, skipping 1. I met like people who immediately played Forbidden West without playing the first game. I'm like, what are you doing? But those people exist. But yeah, I get it then. If you have a lot of moves, if you played Infamous 1, you're like, immediately, let's go. But if you're a new player, it's kind of hard. I also think another part with sequels nowadays. Like, there are two reasons why I don't think it's very, very nice. One is there's just too much time between these games now. Zero Dawn, Forbidden West was 5 years. Like, you cannot expect people to still remember Aloy's journey, still remember the controls, etc., etc. So that's why the first part of Forbidden West was this museum tour telling you everything. Like, basically previously in Horizon, boom, 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 remember the far scene as well, blah, 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 blah. It was like, oh my god. Even for me, as someone who lives and breathes Horizon, was like a bit too much. So that was their solution. They had to get people up to speed again. But for a new character, starting a new character, that does not have to happen. Another thing is that starting players with a cleaner slates often felt better, Fleming says. Open world games benefit from their players and their characters both experiencing them as origin stories. The person who's on the sticks and the character sharing that experience of becoming something, we think that is really, really valuable. And then, he notes that, for example, with Infamous Second Son, they also introduced a new character. And for Yotei, they're doing it again. I think that's very interesting, that, like, a weird thing, what we have seen in Forbidden West, and even in Ragnarok 2, is why did Aloy lose all her gear? They mention it very briefly in the tutorials. Like, you have the shield weaver. I did like that it was kind of broken, but all your other weapons, you're really like, you lost them. Or your moves. Some moves she just did not know anymore or something. And with Ragnarok, it was kind of the same. It's a very weird, like a balancing act where, on one end, it doesn't make sense that this character is way more advanced in the second game, but forgets all the things that she learned. Basically, in the second game, you're way worse than at the end of the first game. Which doesn't really make sense, but they have to figure that out because of new players coming in. So, with a Yotei, they don't have to do it, because it's still the same gameplay, but it makes sense if Atsu does not know all the things that Jin knew at the end of 1. So I think that was a very, very interesting way to look at it. Then there's another interesting part here. Dabbling with multiplayer. After Yotei's launches on October 2nd, Sucker Punch next release is slated to be a multiplayer Legends expansion. As noted earlier, Fleming said that it was a studio choice to dabble with multiplayer for Tsushima Co-op Legends mode, and now for Yotei. But he does not expect Sucker Punch to become a multiplayer studio. Like, I would argue, from all the live service things that Sony is trying, actually making Legends a real live service game, that is, I think, interesting, because that is gameplay that you cannot find elsewhere. Why is Helldivers 2 so successful? It's an experience you cannot find elsewhere. Another extraction shooter, another mobile. We already have those established franchises for that. I think Legends really showed, whoa, they got something. But I like this answer too. We think that genres these days are like professional sports, and for better or worse, we are an open world third-person character action game team. We are a member of a high-level professional league at that. And if we were a high-level soccer team, you would never say, hey guys, you guys should also try playing basketball and go over to this other sport. Multiplayer, he said, was cool for Tsushima and will be for Yotei as well, but it's not the pillar of the game. It's a great place for us to develop tools and technology and design sense that, may fuse into the game at some point. So yeah, basically, we're just gonna try a fun multiplayer mode that you can finish at some point, and then we will move on to our next big open world game. And look, that's what we have seen. Like Anthem, BioWare from the single player RPG trying a live service game. Rocksteady from their action games going into a live service shooter. Avengers, the Tomb Raider studio making an Avengers live service brawler game. It does not work. We've seen it time and time again, and I like that they're still giving Sony what Sony is looking for now, and that is increasing engagement on their platform. They want people to spend as much time on PlayStation as possible. Yotei is nice. It's a big game, but a multiplayer game, that is easier time spent. You're with friends, you're doing repeatable missions. The time you can spend in a Legends mode is a little higher than in a Yotei open world. But I like that they're not going to Sucker Punch and being like, you are now the Legends live service studio. Even though I still think a different team or someone else taking on that Legends idea and making it into a big game is probably the smarter choice than their games or whatever they're trying to do. But hey, those are all my thoughts. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, of course, in the comments down below. The Yotei review will launch on September 25th. Yeah, that's right. So hit the bell notification on the main channel. I'll probably do a video here on the React channel as well, answering some of your questions. So if you have questions, drop them already below. I will do my best to answer them when I can. Of course, when the embargo lifts. Right now, lips are sealed. I can't say anything. But that will be changing soon. So subscribe. I will speak to you soon, and goodbye.